All right, are we ready? 7
Right,
o'clock.
right, Jen?
Yes.
I thought that was a statue. She hadn't moved yet. All right, so people are still coming into the room, but we're gonna get started because we said we would start at 7 o'clock. My name is Eric Tracy. I'm the superintendent of schools for the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School District, and I have with me, I'll let them introduce themselves. Jen Clifford.
I'm Jen Clifford. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for the district, and I was also previously the Cutler School Principal for 15 years.
And Jen Caulfield.
I am the Family and Community Engagement Liaison and the Registrar.
All right. So tonight we are recording this session just so people know we want to be able to have it in case some people were not able to jump into the session. The idea of tonight is really to go through some of the quote more elementary things, if you will, to really hone in on some of the things that we've gotten questions about, and then we'll open it up to questions once we get to the end. The Q&A is open. Jen Caulfield will be going through those and answering the questions out loud. And then once the questions are over, we'll end the webinar. So we hope everybody can get something out of tonight. And as always, the Hamilton hwschools.net website is loaded with information and videos and all kinds of things that are related to the project. So how do we get here? I wanted to back up. A number of people that said, geez, how long has this been going on? Over the past month or so, I've answered this question several times, and we've applied for statement of interest to the state 4 times. And on the 4th try, we got into the MSBA program, specifically for the Cutler School. When they came to see the Cutler School, we asked them to look at the other 2 elementary schools. They agreed with us that the Cutler School needed the most help in the fastest amount of time, and then they went to the Winthrop and kind of felt the same, but it wasn't, like as urgent as the Cutler was, and the Bucher, they felt like the Bucher could continue on as it is now. So they gave us some options, and we created a book building committee, got feasibility funding in October of 2022, which was $1.25 million that was used to do the feasibility study and get us all the way to this point. Working with our owner's project manager and our architects. In the fall of 23, we did visioning sessions with over 50 people, 5 different sessions, and it was teachers and parents and students and people from the community, really talking about what the school should look like and how we should, the things that we should build into it, what was important, how could we kind of break the mold of school, if you will. We've submitted several of our reports to the state, both the PDP, this preliminary design program, the preferred option design program, and the preferred schematic report, which just went in the fall, and then submitted schematic design in December. And part of that process is really keeping the MSBA in the loop. Each of these reports is well over 1,800 pages long, with all the information of everything that's occurred in that particular window of time. Coming up, we have our town meeting votes, and that's the place where these decisions get made. Each of the town meetings is on April 5th. Hamilton is at 9 a.m. and Wenham is at 1 p.m. We are encouraging people to come and vote. They may vote for or against it, but I think it's important. This is our form of government. So, to vote, you got to be there. And then the following Thursday, because it's a debt exclusion, it's something that has to go on the ballot as well. So at town meetings, you need a 2/3 vote of everybody at the town meeting, and then for the debt exclusion, you need a majority vote. So there's actually 4 votes that will occur in the early April. This is a quick timeline just to kind of give us an idea of where we're at. We just got approved by the MSBA Board of Directors for our project scope and budget, and what that means is they agree with all the numbers to date, including the $142 million number and the $49 million reimbursement grant that would come from the MSBA. We'll continue to move along with looking for proposals from contractors, which is the March 12th date. We start to hone in on that, even though we still haven't kind of finalized the vote, but then the votes will come up. And if the votes are successful, we will turn back to the MSBA and execute the project scope and budget agreement, which basically is an agreement to say they are willing to fund the project at all of the parameters that have been set along the way. So some of the visioning sessions way back were great to help us to kind of get our focus. And there were a number of features I think that came out of this, and cost effective and practical design, outdoor space. You'll see we have a number of outdoor spaces, small learning communities for interconnectedness, building relationships, building a sense of belonging, flexibility. We want the building to be flexible. There are so many different ways that you can align classrooms in this building. You'll see later, each of the neighborhoods has 7 classrooms, but they don't necessarily all have to be used the same way. Spaces and programs and structures to meet the needs of kids today. We have 330 students, 295 students on IEPs in the district. And we want to be able to serve all of their needs. And some of those programs are specialized, where there are a few kids in a program for specialized reasons. And part of that is currently building those into our schools that are more than 50 years old is difficult. We use a lot of odd spaces in our current buildings. We use closets, we use hallways, we use stages to do some of these smaller programs and to keep kids in the district. We have currently 41 students out of district, and we hope that, you know, this elementary building also allows us to bring some of those kids back in the district, because we can support the programs with space and facilities that make sense. We wanted to build a sense of community. If you look at the way it's designed, the academic parts of the building can be closed off so that the community can come in and rent the gym or rent the cafeteria or use part of the library or use the front conference room, and the rest of the building can't be accessed. So it's really secure, but also open for the community to be able to take advantage of it. We rent our buildings out constantly for youth sports and badminton and all the things that you can think about in the evening. Some public meetings that occur, the towns use our buildings for town meetings. So there's a lot going on in the schools outside of the school day. And then really trying to build a sustainable facility that we can use as a learning tool. And we'll show you a little bit further when we get into some pictures how we plan to do that. Looking at quality of materials, quality of design, airflow, the ability to cool the building without actually having AC. Those are all parts of the design that we put in built into this project. I'm gonna pass it over to Jen.
Okay, so we're going to start by zooming in and looking at the academic learning neighborhood. Eric, I wish we had that overview slide of the whole footprint really quickly, but I'm going to tell everyone we're zooming into one wing, which is an academic learning neighborhood, which is built as a small learning community. We know that our small schools are important in Hamilton One, and we don't want to lose that feel of community. We don't want to lose that feel of continuity. But this building, I'm also wishing we had different synonyms than flexible, but we're going to say that a lot tonight. The design of this building is made to be really flexible. And we have 5 learning neighborhoods built into the building with 7 classrooms each. And as this red oval shows us, the heart of the neighborhood is the shared breakout spaces. So that is an extended hallway space that has visibility from the classrooms. It has the ability to put some of our library collections, our book collections, close to classrooms. And it also has flexible seating and furniture. So you could put a small group out there. We could have a classroom out there. We could even probably fit 2 classes out there if there was a group working with a teacher. But the idea is to really build some flexible spaces both within and outside of the classroom. And that's in all 5 of our classroom learning neighborhoods. Here's a visual of one of those academic learning neighborhoods. You can see a whiteboard space where maybe there's a teacher or a small group working. You've got flexibility. There might be projection capability, but there's also plenty of space for kids to move through the building. And the glass between the classrooms and the hallway really provides an important sight line that we don't currently have. If we have students working in the hallway, it's really hard to see them from the classroom. And it's really hard to fit them into spaces when those hallways are so crowded. We also are going to look at the classrooms and shared group rooms. So each classroom is paired off together. And in these academic neighborhoods, we also have special education spaces. We have staff planning spaces. And then you can see that smaller rectangle within that red circle is a shared group room. So between 2 classrooms, we have the ability to put a small group. There might be a place for interventions to take place. Right now, they're taking place in hallways, stages, closets. or maybe spaces really far from the classroom. So those small shared group rooms are an opportunity to be used throughout the day for each classroom in lots of different ways. And here we've got a picture of a classroom with some nice opportunities for natural light. Eric will talk more about the features of the design of the classroom and kind of those spacious and clean air and all the important things that go into a classroom, but we'll have flexible furniture, storage, requirements. One thing that was really important for teachers when we were talking about the visioning phase was to have a sink that worked, and they were happy to hear that often there's 2 sinks that are required. There's lots of things that will bring our classrooms up to, not only up to code, but really up to the best practices for to be able to serve our students. So right now we're going to dive into the life of a first grader. The building is designed in 5 different spaces, neighborhood spaces. We're thinking this first one down near the office in the left area here will be the first grade neighborhood, centering our 7 first graders, 7 first grade classrooms. And we're going to walk through what a day in the life might look like. The gym you can see is adjacent, the cafeteria. When they enter the building in the morning, they'll arrive in the main bus entry. That's that bottom arrow towards the front with the office off to the right, or they could be dropped off in the student parking, the student parent drop-off area towards the back, where they can enter through the cafeteria. Right now, we know our students can stop by the morning cafeteria to grab breakfast or a snack. That's an opportunity that comes in when they enter from this main area. Maybe we'll use those gym and that space to have our morning arrival area. What's really important to know is this is a few years away. And if I were the principal of a Cutler school, I want to make the arrival plans with my staff, knowing the logistics. But what we're trying to look at as a design is what are the abilities for us to be able to bring kids in the morning. Entering the gym is a great way to be able to start their morning. Entering the cafeteria, all those proximity places is really important. Then those students will head across the hall. They could stop by their neighborhood library collection and grab a book before they head into their classrooms. And then they'll spend the majority of their day in their classroom and maybe working in that shared group space, maybe going back out into that classroom breakout space. But most first graders and all the way through 5th grade spend most of the day in their classroom, which is a really important place for them. The lunch area is adjacent. We even have a quiet space for lunch. It's a little bit hard to see in this diagram, but we have some options for lunch. And first graders could eat their lunch. They can also head out to the first grade play area for their recess. That is in that dotted circle there. And then maybe they come back inside, work on a project in the breakout area outside their classroom as an afternoon activity. And then they'll probably head off to special. The music rooms are directly across the hall on the first floor. And our students go to art, music, PE, library tech, and STEM. And the media center's right there. Well, they'll head to library. The art room is directly above these music rooms. And there's a stairway that's adjacent to that music area. Eric's got it pointed out there. So students can head right up to art on the days where they have art. And STEM will be upstairs as well. And first graders always go back to their classrooms to finish up the day, pack their belongings, get ready to go. And then that bus, there's an important canopy that will be out front in the main plaza where students can wait for the buses. They can also wait for their parents in the pickup line, which would be in a different area than the buses before they head off for the day. Something that's important to know is that first graders and all students at classes in elementary school are escorted by their teachers. So they are not wandering around the building by themselves at any point in the day, unless maybe there's an errand or a specific job that we've asked students to do. But all of our kids, just like they are now, will be accompanied by adults and be able to navigate their way around in groups.
Thank you, Jen. I'm going to jump into some of the outdoor play and learning spaces. There are several around the building. And they're spread out in different places. Some of them are age-based, and then some of them are just location-based for various groups of kids. The first play area out to the right side of the building is one of our larger outdoor play areas, and you'll see it has a half basketball court. It'll have a handball court, and it also has a fairly substantial amount of space for kids to go out and play on various climbing and activity stations that are that would be across that entire space. Look a little like this. This is the Manchester Memorial Elementary School. If you want to go check it out, you can feel free to go by their school and take a look at it. It's a beautiful play area, and very similar to what we're thinking about when we start to look at some of the things that would be installed. On the left side of the building is what Jen talked about earlier, the kind of first grade or lower grades play area that can be used by first and probably second grade. In the afternoon, and people say they look at this space and they say, oh, it's kind of small. It actually isn't. It's designed to be for 120 students to be approximately 50 square feet per child. So that gives us a lot of space. It seems to look smaller on here. And some of those things may look different. You may see a different type of climbing opportunity for kids, or different types of swings and more grade appropriate activities. And then you can also see some of the places like little forts and little streetcar activities that kids can do within those places as well. When you look at the fields, there's where this current circle is, there's a baseball diamond. The baseball diamond is designed to also house 3 soccer fields in the outfield. Currently, there are 2, sometimes 3, depending on how big they make them, to the left side of the building. This is the first. This is the area, the baseball field, where there'll be at least 3 soccer fields. There'll be 5 total soccer fields on the site. Actually, any playing fields, but I think they'll initially be lined for soccer because we play soccer in the fall. And that would, simple field with some fencing with some dugouts and things like that. So again, community use, local use. And then the play area across from the parking lot is really where there are 2 more soccer-sized fields, and they are youth soccer-sized fields. And they fit in this space right here. And coming out of the building, students would there's a cut through that would go right here and feed them in to that space. We also envision that space to be used for outside PE. It's a fairly substantial size so that kids can spread out and do some of the games that they do outside together. You'll see a lot of open space like that in this far right side of the building. Similar, the basketball court is very similar to this one. It's about a half size basketball court, like a half court basketball court. And then some of the other places that are in built into the system, if you will. I'm going to back up a second. I hit twice, which I think I did to Jen at one time. So these are outdoor learning areas and outdoor plazas that can be used by classrooms. They can be used by groups, smaller groups, to go outside. And if somebody's coming to do a demonstration and it's beautiful outside, they can get outside and take advantage of those areas. And they can be built with rocks and grass and all kinds of different activities and learning activities. Specifically, several of the schools we visited had things like dry rivers built in, and they talked about sustainability of rain and using rainwater within the whole project. You can also create outdoor seating areas like this so that kids in classes can come out, work outside. And that's one of the things we learned in COVID. Like, classes don't have to happen within the 4 walls of the classroom. They can move around and move about, be outside and be inside. And we've designed this specifically to be connected to that main corridor so that it's easily accessible from all of the 5 learning neighborhoods. And they can look a little like this too. Some of the seating areas are as simple as taking a whole bunch of cut logs and blending them in with some plant material and some logs, log structures, just for kids to get out and sit. They can sit with their classes. They could do demonstrations. There can be science and STEM classes outside. So it gives the opportunity for learning outside as well. The site plan is important, and I'm going to try to use my pointer here to talk a little bit about the site. But we had a traffic study done. It's about, 280 pages, I think, so something like that. It's pretty substantial. And part of that traffic study was, how do we pull as many cars as we could off of Asbury Street? If we're increasing the number of students, we need to pull cars off Asbury Street. So this would be the entrance here, and you would follow up this road around to the back, and this is where the student drop off would be. Students would get dropped off. They could go in the caf and get their breakfast. They can go in the gym to kind of run around and stretch out and get ready. And then parents would continue on down here and out this way. The front loop would be specifically for buses only. So buses would hop in, drop kids, and then they would loop off to wherever they have to go next. During the school day, you'll see these gray lines. There's one right here, and there's another one right here. Those actually are gates that lock off that road during the school day. Once we have drop off done, we would close these areas off with gates, and it becomes, if you have kids in the Bucher School, it becomes very similar to the front of the Bucher School, where they have Foursquare painted on the road. They have activities that they can do there as well. So there's opportunity to get kids in and out of the building without worrying about cars flying through or anybody coming through the building. And many of these areas are fenced in, especially this area over here where the younger kids would be. That's all fenced in and secure. So that's a little bit of a look at the traffic pattern and how it works within the building. And you can see a little more clearer from this view that these outdoor learning spaces are pretty substantial. There's a lot of space out there, a lot of opportunity to put little types of seating and climbing opportunities for kids as well. This is an aerial view looking at, the site as it would be if we were to build this school. This is the opposite side, and you can see some of these play areas, the soccer fields down in here, the baseball diamond. There'd be 3 soccer fields in here for use during that season. This play area here is the half basketball court. There's actually, it's not showing here right now, I don't know why, but there's a handball court, and then this extends all the way down into this area. And this is the front area. You can see some of the little seating areas. There's a canopy here for kind of bad weather days when kids are waiting for pickups and things by buses or parents for late afternoon activities. Just zoomed into that same space. This is really the front entrance, and kids can hang there and work in activities with their classmates and other classes. People have asked me the question about, what about the interaction of other grades with say first graders or second graders? We do that across the district. We have a number of opportunities for reading buddies or leaders, 5th grade leaders. So we use our kids in those ways. We really want them to kind of learn how to be in school, and to do that, you generally can help, use the help of the older kids to teach younger kids. And this is what we do in school. This is how we act in school. And as again, you can do all kinds of things with mentor programs and do a little meeting out here with reading groups. So it gives us some flexibility to use the whole campus. This is right inside the front lobby, and as you come in the front door, which is right off to the right, you look straight ahead at this dashboard. This is a digital dashboard for sustainability, and it would tell us how, water use, electrical use, and give statistics on the building that kids can use in their STEM programs as they kind of work through the school day or the school year. I'm going to back up one second. Right here. So this stairwell going up is where we're going to end up, right here. And up in here is really just a little bit of a slope transition for kids to go to the 2nd grade wing or into the art rooms. And STEM would be off to the left, where you can see the windows. That would be a STEM lab that opens out into a balcony where they could bring plants and grow plants and do experiments and activities outside. This is a view from the cafeteria through to the gym. And you can see the auditorium, the auditorium stage all the way at the other end. There is a wall that closes during a regular school day. The wall would be closed. And we've kind of borrowed this idea from Manchester, Essex. They do the same thing. They have a cafeteria, gym, and their gyms flip the other way, and then they have an auditorium space. And this is very similar, where we would have our cafeteria, there'd be a wall closed, but you could have all kinds of different activities. We had math night last night. This would be an ultimate space to have something like math night or a science fair, or different opportunities for the community to interact, whether it be on the stage or on the gym floor or in the cafeteria. It gives us a really high level of flexibility. Also be used that way during the school day. The gym can be divided in half by a dropping curtain. And as you know, we run 5 specials, and those specials can run in tandem. So you can have 2 groups of kids in the gym at the same time. Sometimes You'd have a group on the stage, maybe doing some rehearsals and things. And this is a learning neighborhood, which we've seen. The learning neighborhoods give us an opportunity to flex out of the classroom, do something different, if you will. And then the classrooms are really bright. They have light reflectors. You can see one in the middle window at the top. These really bounce the light in and back up to the ceiling so that you can use a lot more natural light. The windows would be designed to go to the floor level so that kids, the little ones especially, can see outside and see what's going on. And then things like Jen mentioned earlier, sinks and storage are things that we don't necessarily have in all of our elementary classrooms. Mass code requires 2 sinks in elementary classrooms now, an adult sink and a kid sink. We also, if you go into some of our schools, if you've been in the Cutler, or the Winthrop, even the Bucher, actually all of them, they have cubbies that are on the wall and there's stuff everywhere during a school day, especially in the winter when there are snow pants and boots and all those other things. But these cubbies are built into the classroom. They're on wheels. They move around. Teachers can also use them to divide up the classroom during the school day as well. So it becomes a different type of tool. And then I really wanted to talk about healthy classrooms when you're looking at the efficiencies. The current 3 buildings are 60 years old, approximately, about 68 years old, I think, in total. The reality of that is they're not efficient. We spend a lot of money to heat them. They are sometimes hot, sometimes cold, sometimes in the middle. You never know. Lighting, we have over time started to retrofit many of our old fluorescent and incandescent lights to LEDs. Those are just through grants that we get through the state, through mass saves and things like that. We work with our energy person who works out of the town of Hamilton, who connects with us and also Wenham, and try to get different grants to outfit places where we don't have these efficiencies. The acoustics are spectacular. This is an actual classroom in Manchester Essex Memorial Elementary School. When I walked into this classroom, it literally took my breath away. It was so bright and clean and airy. You could it just felt like a great place to be. Flooring every summer. I've been doing this for 34 years. Every summer, the custodians rip everything out of every classroom, pour all kinds of chemicals on the floor, strip the wax off, go back in and put 7 coats of wax back on the floors in the classroom every summer. We don't have to do that anymore, saving that entire expense across the elementary schools. No wax floor, no stripping. It's all natural. It doesn't have off-gassing issues and things like that. Then we're looking at indoor air quality. We are using a displacement system in this building that basically the air comes in low and leaves high, which increases the potential for reducing the viral load, and things like dust can be pushed up and out, taking them out of kind of the breathing range, if you will. Filtering would be MERV 14, MERV 14. And then looking at thermal comfort across the school year, the further we get into September, it's been warmer and warmer in late September. So you're still at 75 to 90 degrees in sometimes in September. There's no AC in any of our buildings. There's no cooling. It's like open the door, open the window, and turn on a fan and blow the hot air around. This building would be designed to really balance the temperature across the building to approximately 70 to 72 degrees at all times, including winter and deep summer. That helps us in a lot of ways, including summer programs. We run summer programs in the dead of summer, and it's 90 degrees, and kids and teachers are in there really sweating their learning along. And then natural light is important. We see a lot of natural light and glass in a lot of the new buildings we've gone to. The glass, people are going to say, well, why is there so much glass? What about problems? And the glass is actually specially made. It was made by a company that was started by a gentleman after Sandy Hook. And it's not a bulletproof glass, but it's more of a safety glass that is much more difficult to break and much more difficult to access. Gives us much more visibility, gives a lot more ability to reflect light off the ceiling and into the classroom spaces. Everything then automatically closes down at the end of the day. So, you leave a classroom light on at 5 o'clock, it's generally going to stay on until the next morning because there's not anybody there to shut it off. These things would all control themselves and shut on and off on their own. So that's it in a nutshell. We are very willing to take questions. There is a Q&A link, and Jen Caulfield will jump into the Q&A. She's gonna just feed us the questions and we'll do our best to answer them.
All right, so while people hopefully will type in some questions, I did receive some via email before this information session, and I think
Okay.
it's probably a burning question amongst many people. I'll take kind of three and roll them into one. What happens if we vote no, and what will the district do? Or what can we do? I guess that's kind of two in one.
Go back on this. Dun, dun, sorry. If we vote no, that's a good question. So if the towns decide this is not the direction they want to go in, we would have to notify the MSBA. We have a certain number of days to notify the MSBA. And essentially, we would separate from the program. We would end our relationship to date with the program and have to take a step back and determine next steps. That has happened in surrounding communities. It happened in Ipswich. Ipswich in 2018 was actually doing something very similar. They were doing a consolidated school, 775 students. At that time, the cost was 70 million. And then they said no, so they were out of the program. And the state does allow you to keep reapplying for what they call a statement of interest each year to say, hey, we want back in. Unfortunately, they didn't get back in for a little over 6 years. And the estimates that our owner's project manager was giving us for the same project in today's dollars is not 70 million, but 170 million. So there's a huge escalation cost over time that is concerning. So we have to factor that in. We could then engage an agency to review our current buildings one at a time. If we did any renovation or compliance updates, the state would not be part of that. They would only really get involved if we started to change the building by doing an addition or building a new building. So that would be it's a game of chance. You might get drawn back into the MSBA in 5 years, in 3 years, in 8 years. You just never know. And all that while, what we're getting is cost escalations of approximately 3% every year on construction costs alone. So that gets expensive really quickly. Currently, if we were just to do ADA compliance and code upgrades in our buildings, we're looking at about $774 per square foot of the building. So you're looking at the Cutler School would be approximately 45 to $49 million. That would be money that would not, there would be no reimbursement from the state. So all of that money would come from the communities in some type of a debt exclusion. And what happens then is you take out, it's the same process. You would request the debt exclusion from the town, say everybody passed it. You would then take out a 20-year note and you'd be paying that down over 20 years. Now you still have 2 other schools that you need to address that are still 60 plus years old. So you go to the Winthrop, say 5 years later, and do the same thing. It's going to be more expensive and it's going to stack on top of the debt that you already have. So now you're putting another 40 to $50 million on top of the debt you're currently paying down. And if you did it a third time, it really stretches your timeline out for paying debt almost to 35 years when you stack them that way, when you stack up debt that way. And it gets really expensive really quickly. The other thing is, what happens is state law requires if you're doing renovations and updates, once you cross 20% of the value of the building, you have to do ADA upgrades automatically. That gets expensive really quickly, especially in the Cutler School. Cutler School has a lift in there that currently is not working, so we don't use that. They have several ramps in there that cannot be used. They are not the right pitch. So those would have to be taken out and redone, reconfigured. So it would get expensive fairly quickly. You have to remove, you end up running into things like asbestos and some of those other fun things that we don't like to deal with in schools, but we have to with schools this age.
We have a question from the chat. What will happen with the current Cutler students during construction? Will it be loud and distracting?
So in my conversation with the current superintendent in Manchester, Essex, they built their school right next to their original school. I'm locked out of this. Sorry, folks. Just put that back in there. They built 11 feet away, I think it was, from the original school. They built part of the new school. They moved the kids in, took down part of the old school, built the rest of the school. And they were able to function with very little disruption. It would be similar here. The Cutler kids would stay in the Cutler school during the entire construction process and go to school. The Winthrop kids would go to school, the Winthrop and Bucher, so things would remain the same in our schools. Once that school building is done, which is projected to be done in the fall of 2028, we would move our 1st through 5th graders into the new building. And that would also trigger the removal of the current Cutler school on the site so they could put in all of the play yards and baseball diamond and park the rest of the parking.
Another one from the chat. Can you explain a bit more about what is prevailing wage for municipal projects and how does that impact the cost estimate?
Yeah, prevailing wage is a requirement for what you pay for certain services like plumbing and HVAC. Those numbers tend to get high. They're all union jobs. You can't bring in generally non-union people to do your school. It's part of that whole the whole legal process of the construction project. It gets a little more expensive, actually quite a bit more expensive when you're in that direction, but it's really the way to go because you have professional groups behind you really that know how to do this work, that generally do this work fairly consistently. People who are building schools are generally building schools across the state and sometimes across, a specific area like New England.
Thanks. How this came earlier in the day, it seems like there would be a lot of kids in the lunchroom. How would you be able to handle that many students in that lunchroom?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the lunchroom is I'm going to back it up a little bit and tell a story. When we first designed the lunchroom, it was a little bit smaller and the gym was a little bit bigger. The MSBA in February reached out to us and said, hey, you need to take a look at this. You need to make the gym a little bit, the gym a little bit smaller and the cafeteria a little bit bigger. And by the way, you'll get $860,000 back in reimbursements. So we looked at it, made the adjustments, and then went back to the state and said, okay, they agreed with the changes that we made. The cafeteria, people are like, wow, that's a big cafeteria. We do not intend to put all kids in the cafeteria at one time. We don't even intend to put half of them in the cafeteria at one time. That would make all the adults crazy because it would be so loud you wouldn't be able to hear yourself think. So what we've run through a few different plans already. We would do this by grade, just like we do now. If you go to any of the schools, they generally lunch by grades. Their teachers take them from their classroom to the cafeteria. They get in their lines. Right now, each of the schools has one serving line. They're all set up to serve between 80 and 90 kids each lunch. This cafeteria is actually bigger and has double service lines. So we would be able to serve twice as many kids at the same amount of time. So I just use an example of a first grade class. First grade class has about 128 kids in it. Those kids would all go to lunch together. Some kids would sit in the main caf. Some kids might choose to sit in the quiet area. They would, if you had your lunch, you bring it with you. If you need to get a lunch, you just get in the lunch line, just as you would today. Go through the lunch line, pop your number in, and you're off to eating your lunch. So
Can I just jump in?
Basically grade level. Go ahead, Jen.
We have basically grade level lunches. We also have some grade levels that eat together right now. We also have staggered lunches right now where one grade level comes in and about 10, 15 minutes later, another grade level comes in. So those are all options within this much bigger space.
Yeah, the beauty of the space is the flexibility. Again, you could do a half class, one class. Right now, we actually have lunches that start as early as 10:40, just because of the way the size of the current cafeterias. They're fairly small in our elementary schools. This cafeteria gives us the flexibility to close that gap down so that kids are eating, more closely to a lunchtime.
Thanks. What do the teachers think about this proposed project and what was their involvement in the building committee? And do we know what the union's perspective is?
Yeah, teachers have been involved all the way back since visioning. We had a number of elementary school teachers in the visioning process. They were helpful in giving us kind of the perspective of what's it like to be in a classroom right now and what do we want to change. Along the way, we've gone back and forth with our teachers to kind of show them, get feedback, send it out, get more feedback. We have a number of teachers on the building committee that are helping to connect the dots for us. And the union right now is my last conversation with the union president around support is 80% of the teachers voted in a survey that he did to support this project. They really like the idea, especially our elementary people. They are moving from, you know, really substandard working conditions into something that would be amazing. And part of that for a superintendent or a principal is also helping to hold your staff in place. People want to be here, they want to work here, and you're able to bring in even higher quality staff oftentimes because these are the places that people want to be. Does that answer that whole question?
I think so.
Yeah.
If this passes, what happens to the other schools, Winthrop and Bucher?
Okay. Good question. Currently the school district does not own any of the land or the school buildings that the elementary schools are on. So the Bucher and the land there is owned by Wenham, and the Winthrop and the Cutler are owned by Hamilton. We lease them through the regional agreement. So it would really be up to the towns. The town of Hamilton has been very clear since this is my 14th year in the district. Since I started here, I've been hearing, you know, this talk about the Winthrop site. They could demolish the Winthrop school and do something with that slightly over, I think it's slightly over 14-acre site. They could do nothing with it. They could turn it into a park. It would really be something that I think the towns would be wise to bring back to the town meeting to say, okay, what are we going to do? So that would be a possibility. The Bucher School is perfect for an early learning center. So pre-K and kindergarten would move into that building, and it would give us some flexibility because they wouldn't use all the classrooms. It would give us some flexibility to have a nice library for them, a music space. There's already a beautiful gym in there and the perfect size cafeteria. The building's actually oddly designed right for that level of student, because in our preschool program, we have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, and 3, 4-year-olds. And then in our kindergarten, you have 5-year-olds. So the building itself has very closely clustered on the original part of the building. There are 4 classrooms, which are currently kindergarten classes in first grade, that could easily be converted into preschool classrooms because they're close proximity. The nurse is right there, the gym is right there, the cafeteria is right there. Everything's very close. It also gives us the opportunity to really change the dynamic of early learning and focus differently on younger kids. And right now, people are like, well, where are the preschools? The preschools are in the Winthrop right now, in the what we call the new wing. And they're in the same wing with first and second graders every day during the school day. So it's not a matter of like, are we worried about mixing grades? It's really a matter of doing grade appropriate things with these children throughout the school day and being able to set the school up to help them to meet the success of that along the way. And the Cutler School would actually, once we built the new school, would be demolished and again turned into the fields and play spaces and things that we need. It actually is right over the baseball field.
All right, one that was emailed in earlier is, I have read that this school is, quote, safer. Can you explain what you mean?
Sure. In each one of our elementary schools, if someone is buzzed in the door, they have access to the entire school with little prohibiting them from going where they want. That's a problem for me personally, and it's a problem that is difficult to solve in the current building design we have. The sight lines are important. The new building has sight lines in the main office that are designed to see everybody coming out the front side of the building. Sight lines in our current schools, you can't see, for example, if you're in the main office in the Winthrop, the only way you can see who's out front is by looking at the camera. That's the only way you can see, unless you get up out of your seat and go and answer the door. Cutler School, you can be buzzed in, you walk in, and you can, instead of taking a left to head towards the main office, take a right and go into the corridor where our kindergarten kids are and our gym is. And Bucher School's the same way. Go in the front door, you're buzzed in, you can just walk straight ahead and go left or right and access anywhere in the building. This new building gives us the ability to close it off a little bit. I'm gonna now jump to this slide because it's appropriate. I'll zoom in a little bit here. Main entry, as you come into the main entry of the building right here, there's a set of doors that you'd come in and you'd be basically stuck between these two sets of doors. There's also either a door or a window here and a door and a window here so that you can ask people from the office why they're here, what they need, what their, what their business is, and determine where they go from there. So generally, if somebody gets in here, they will not get past this point unless we've determined that, yes, they're here for a reason. So they might be coming to read to a classroom of kids. And if they're not going to get past that set of doors. In the school itself, there's a little black line here. That is actually a door that drops down to close off that whole right section of the building. And then each of the learning neighborhoods can be segregated individually, so that even if someone got into this part of the building, we can use the panic buttons that are around the building to lock everything down really quickly. And there's an example of this in several of the new schools that we went to see. If you've gone to a school, you notice teachers and administrators wear badges. Those badges not only allow us access to certain doors and certain places within our buildings, they could also be used to trigger a lockdown in the case of an emergency by anybody that's on staff. So that's really a big part of the way, again, this was designed. And again, it closes off in multiple ways so that you can really limit an intruder. And the beauty we have in Hamilton and Wenham is our police departments are really close by. We work closely with them. In fact, in our processes leading up to this, we met with Hamilton and Wenham PD, Hamilton and Wenham Fire, and said, what do you think of this building? And that's how the road going around it changed a little bit. The fire department wanted it 25 feet wide, which is really big. But it's important to be able to get a truck around, which you can't get a truck around the Cutler School now. And other safety features of the safety glass I talked about. Most entries during a school intruder come through the front door, oddly. But that's, what we've seen in a lot of the things that have occurred across the United States. And in that front area would be that glass that is much more difficult to break. Not impermeable. If somebody's there with an AK-47, that's a different problem, but it's much more difficult to get through than just having regular glass in the windows. And that glass was designed right after Sandy Hook by a gentleman who was involved in the Sandy Hook after the shooting. So I think it's safe to say that was actually a great idea at that time. And the newer schools are starting to use those different types of materials to help in that process.
Thanks. For parents who don't have kids in the district, can you explain how you determine how you get assigned to a school as a kindergartner if you live farther than 0.5 miles from a school? And what are the bubble classrooms for the third class, and how does that work in the building? My understanding is the new building would eliminate the need for bubble classes and provide more equity across the district, but I would like to hear more about that.
Yeah, so there are a lot of factors in assignment. Location is one of many. Students on IEPs, depending on the level of their need, if they need a specialized program, they could end up at a specific building. For example, if your child has a language-based learning disability currently, no matter where you live in town, that child is going to go to Cutler School. And that's because that's the only place we have that program. And that's one of the disadvantages of, 3 small schools. We have these little programs spread out across buildings. If your child needs a therapeutic learning center or learning environment, the only place they can go, no matter where you live in town, they would have to go to Winthrop because that's where we offer that program. We have tried to spread it out to other buildings and found it difficult because you're ending up with 2 or 3 staff members dealing with 2 kids, which is really not good economics of scale. This new building really puts everything in one place. You have physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language, all of your specials, all available in one place. Right now, our specialists and some of our PTOT people drive around the district from school to school, so that they can get to various kids. This would centralize a lot of those services right here in this building, other than the kids that would need it at the middle and high school, and the kindergarten and preschoolers. But this really gives us the opportunity to keep services in kind of home base, if you will. Each of the neighborhoods, like this one here on this left side, is the first grade neighborhood, but these pink rooms are actually special ed classrooms or areas that can be used for pullouts and things like that. So the kids stay with their classmates. They're not leaving their friends. And that's an important piece of the puzzle for us, the whole friend group thing. Kids in our 3 elementary schools may not cross paths until they get to 6th grade. Think about that. If you go to any, different elementary schools, you may not see the other first graders in your first grade class until you get to the middle school. This gives us the opportunity to, again, more flexibility. If we have 2 classrooms right now in a school and you need 2 children separated, okay, 1 in each classroom. But if you need 3, you have to decide how you're going to do it. This gives us the ability to kind of move kids around and make that much more easy to do. And then the bubble classroom is really it rotates around depending on where we have space each year. And the combination is always 2 first grades in I'll just use first grade as an example. 2 first grades in the Winthrop, 2 first grades in the Cutler, and 3 first grades in the Bucher. It actually works the other way around. Sorry. 2 first grades in the Bucher, 2 first grades in the Winthrop, and 3 first grades in the Cutler. That's how it's organized right now. Next year, if we have 7 of our kindergarten classes, the bubble for kindergarten will probably end up at Cutler because we do have the space to move kids around. So it moves around depending on where there is opportunity and space within the 3 buildings. This,
So
by the way,
can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So when you're a kindergarten parent registering for school and you think, oh, I live right down the street from a school in Hamilton Wenham, my child will go there. That's not necessarily the case right now. So placement is often prioritized by siblings, so students that are already in the district. So we don't split families up across schools, except in the case, as Eric was saying, if a sibling would need a specialized service, then we need to figure out with the family where the children are going to go, either between different buildings or the same. Maybe everybody moves to a different where the services are available. But depending on the bubble year of kindergarten, that's where the majority of new students would be assigned to schools. So this year we had 3 classrooms in kindergarten at Winthrop. So we have anyone living in that typically Winthrop district was assigned there, but I'm sure that there are other students that might live in a neighborhood where some students go to Bucher or Cutler. Those students might have been assigned to Winthrop this year because that's where those extra seats were. That's the difficulty of the bubble as families, not really, it's kind of like you're just getting the luck of the draw of what year you're registering and where that bubble class is. That also means as that bubble class moves through, if there's 3 sections of kindergarten at a school this year, there's 3 sections of first grade next year, teachers are moving between grade levels because it means that there's not consistency in the number of classrooms at a grade level for the duration of that throughout that school. So that means there's a lot of movement between grade levels. For teaching staff, it just creates some inconsistency in numbers, lots of different factors that if we're all under the same roof, would bring that consistency together to be able to have 7 sections. So that bubble would be absorbed into this one building where we could have 7 sections of each class or each grade level. We can move students, moving 100 and something students around across 7 classrooms is much easier than moving 45 kids across 2 rooms. There are, as Eric said, there's only so many combinations you can make. And it would just give some consistency to teachers to be able to work with all of their colleagues under the same roof, have access to the same resources. All the students have the access to the same resources. So it's not only about the assignment to school, but it's also that consistency for those 5 years that the kids are in school.
Thank you.
Great. Will the traffic patterns, sidewalks, et cetera, on Asbury Street be considered?
Yeah, so I'll just move back in on this so we can see the road. Actually, let's go to Let's go to a clearer view here. This one. In this view, as I think I mentioned earlier, this is Asbury Street down here. Coming into the facility, you would come in here if you were dropping your child off and continue along this road around to the back and drop kids here. It's our kind of drop area, and then come out and around this way. This is designed to take a number of cars off here. I think the number is like 50 something cars. And if we load and unload like we do in our schools now, we don't see any issue with traffic backup. It's just a matter of keeping everybody moving. And then sidewalks. So we want, still have the opportunity for kids to ride their bikes to school or walk to school. We have a number of families that do walk to school, and we have, they would do some enhancements on the sidewalk. There's a sidewalk that would come in here. And again, during the school day, gates would close and close off this actual outside perimeter drive. So there has been consideration. There is, if you'd like to maybe do it before you go to bed, read the traffic report. It's a fairly extensive report about not only the Asbury Street area and the site, but also I think they talk about a lot of there's a connection back down to the end of Asbury Street where the senior center, police station, where everything kind of is at a hub. So there's some pretty good information in there about traffic and counts. They actually spent several days counting traffic in and out of each of the schools, so that they could get a gauge on how many people would come in and out. We currently now have a dozen buses. So 2/3 of our elementary kids really take a bus to school, which is helpful. And certainly if we can get more on, we'd love to get more on. It's a really easy way to get to school and get home from school. The buses are also currently right now we use transfer buses, and we're essentially moving kids around from building to building. So kids would have in the morning or afternoon multiple stops where they might get off a bus at the Bucher, wait for another bus to come, jump on that bus and get taken over to the Winthrop School. We use that type of a system because we have kids coming from all over the community to 3 different schools. That negates this, that would be gone in this process, and the buses would just literally drop. They could drop here first and go to the Bucher School or vice versa. So there's all kinds of patterning changes we can do with our buses as well.
Thanks. One of the last ones that were emailed, might be a little repetitive, but why did the district choose consolidation?
Great question. Consolidation is meets a number of things. It can give us some economies of scale. We we believe save between $300,000 and $500,000 depending on how things are configured in the long run, because the efficiencies alone. We talk about the cost of heating 3 buildings that are not really efficient. We're not holding the heat in, if you will. We don't cool our buildings, but we use a lot more electricity than one would believe. So we're paying those costs at fairly high rates. We just got a 40% increase in our natural gas and electricity costs across the district that will impact next year's budget, and that stuff just continues to rise. We would move into this building. It would be designed to be solar ready, and then work with outside groups to be able to get solar panels put on the building, which would begin to substantially drop the costs of electricity. The systems that are being designed in here are all electric except for the generator that has to be powered by something other than electricity for obvious reasons. Staffing is interesting. People have asked me about staffing changes. We do have the ability to pick up every classroom and drop it in the school just as it is today. There are 35 classrooms in grades 1 through 5, and there are 35 classrooms in this building. It was designed specifically for that. And that gives us some ability to get some flexibility in the classrooms too. Currently, our class sizes are 19. People say, well, what does that look like in, 3A is the thing that comes up all the time. What does that look like? If we added 100 more kids, they would not hugely impact our class sizes across the building because we have flexibility. The number 740 was designed by the state based on 23 kids in a classroom. And if you do the simple math, 740 kids, 23 kids a class, divide that, you'd come up with 32 classrooms. We actually added 3 classrooms in to meet the current needs that we have, and it gives us some flexibility to be able to add. If you added 1 kid to every classroom, there's 35. You added another kid every classroom, you're at 70 new kids above this current 680, and you're still only at 21 kids in a class, which is still lower than many of the surrounding communities.
Thanks. I do not have any other questions unless somebody wanted to shoot one in the chat, which I do not see, or in the Q&A, I should say. I do not see any.
Says there are 7 in there.
Yep, we talked about them all.
Oh, okay.
Any more, I should have
Any,
clarified.
any other questions? We're here to answer your questions, and certainly I would encourage you to dig into some of the data. I did email out, well, I didn't, Jen did, email out tax implications, which I think is an important part of the discussion when you're thinking about, you know, what does this look like for me and an average home in either of the communities. So I sent out an email that has the tax implication slides that we used at our forum the other night. And I also added in 2 spreadsheets where you can kind of quickly look at roughly what your house valued at and see what you would pay during year 1. I will warn people that the charts are never accurate. Both FinComs have said the same thing publicly, because each year the assessment in the district is determined by the number of kids in each of the communities. So that changes slightly, not a lot, but slightly enough to shift. You know, if it's $700 one year, it could be $710 next year, or it could be $680, depending on how the shift goes. And then what we end up getting for interest rates. Currently, we're basing everything off of a 4.5% interest rate, which we believe is high, given that all 3 entities, the 2 towns and the district, are AAA rating. So we generally get a better rate on bonds. And again, when you think about the kind of the bigger picture of the tax implications, we're trying to get a tax calculator out so you can actually take the assessed value of your house, drop it in the tax calculator. It'll tell you exactly the 20 years. It'll build out the whole 20 years of approximately what the impact would be across each of those 20 years. And that should be live by Monday at the latest. I've been targeting Friday, but I don't want to say Friday just in case we need to tweak it a little. So Monday at the latest, it will be live and available on our website so that you can take a look at that as well. And we're trying to put out as much information as we can so that people can make the best decision. You know, this is always one of those projects that draws. So town meetings, you may have more people at town meeting, and whether you vote yes or no, it gives us an idea of what direction we need to go next and how we approach that. And, you know, if this project fails, then I'm coming back with something else. It's important for us to do. These schools are almost 70 years old each, and they are fairly worn out. Our maintenance guys do as much as they can to keep up with it. We dropped a new boiler in Cutler School last year because we had to. Both the Bucher and the Winthrop boilers have all been replaced in the past 9 years. So we continue to do those maintenance things on our buildings, and they're just going to continue to stack up each year as these projects get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we want to hopefully alleviate that. You know, opportunity for new building helps to kind of increase the connections across the community, both with the community spaces and with so many more kids getting to know each other is just a fascinating dynamic of this whole project.
There's a couple follow-up questions. One is to what you were just talking about, and it was, can you outline the voting plans, I guess, or needs for the town meeting and the ballots for the project?
Sure. So each town meeting on April 5th, Hamilton town meeting starts at 9 a.m. Wenham town meeting starts at 1 p.m. There are a number of other ballot questions, but the ballot question is, you know, are we going to vote to support the new school project and taking on the debt associated with it? That's essentially the question. It's much more complex than that, but that's essentially the question. If for the project to pass, you need 2/3 positive vote of everybody at the meeting. If you don't get 2/3, it doesn't pass, and then it doesn't really go any further there. If you get the 2/3 vote at the town meeting, 2/3 vote of anybody there, you have to be there to vote. If you get that vote, then it carries on to the following Thursday during the election. There will be a ballot question. And the ballot question is basically, are we agreeing to take out the debt for this much money? Yes or no? That ballot question just needs a simple majority, so 51% to move ahead. Again, if it gets 48%, it doesn't move ahead, even if you got 2/3 vote at the town meetings. So that's 4 votes, 2 town meeting votes and 2 ballot votes in each of the communities.
We got some more questions.
Yeah.
When is the next open house to tour Cutler School?
Saturday the 15th, 10 a.m. Come join me. Yeah, we had one this past Saturday. It was fairly well attended. We got the opportunity to tour some people around and give them a look at things that they wouldn't generally see when they bring their kids to school. Even if you drop your kids off at school, you don't see some of the things like, you know, a ramp running right through a second grade classroom to get to another part of the building. So those are all really, I encourage people to come see, take a look at your schools, understand what you're voting for or not voting for. That's why we're doing this. We want to be able to have people see some of the things that are in our schools today. Education has changed dramatically. This is, as I said earlier, this is my 34th year in education, and it is no longer desks and rows or, you know, even just groups. There's so many more dynamics in education. I think COVID helped us to take advantage of some of those dynamics, like using the outdoors without being afraid to go outside, and using the building as a learning tool. So a lot of the spaces in the building are designed like that stairway that I showed earlier. The stairway here has a whole thing around it, so a class of kids can be there and there can be a presenter presenting if you needed to. So there's a lot of flexibility within the building to give kids an opportunity to learn differently, because we don't all learn the same. You know, I have you know, 3 daughters, and every single one of them learns differently. Some of them can just hear it and they're fine and they're good, and others need to dig at it and dig at it and dig at it. And I'm sure if you have multiple kids, you see that in your own children. And the dynamics with neurodiversity in our districts has increased dramatically over the past 15 years, and we're working hard to make sure that we have programs that can meet the needs of all of our kids. It doesn't matter what program they're in, they are all of our kids, they live in our communities, and we should service them in our schools, and that's part of the goal of this project.
One thing, I'm gonna follow up to the town meeting piece for some of the families on tonight. There's a new choice at both Hamilton and Wenham town meetings that a group went to the towns for. There's gonna be a family-friendly room where you can bring your young children with you. It'll
Yep.
be separate from the auditorium or the gym at Bucher if you're in Wenham. And then the second thing that helps families is the National Honor Society students from our high school will be at both town meetings, also in a separate space, and they will be babysitting. So there'll be information on Eric's Weekly this week, as well as out on social media. And then we have one last question that came in through the chat, which was, why was the Winthrop site ruled out?
Great question. That is the big question, because that's, I think originally where everybody said, oh, that's the biggest site, that's probably the place it'll end up. The reality is, to build this type of a school, it wouldn't be exactly like this because of the way the property is shaped, but to build a new school on that property, you would have to do it in stages. So you'd have to do what Manchester Essex did. You'd have to build some of the school, move kids into it, knock down part of the old school, build some more of the school, move kids into it, and you'd probably have groups of kids in modulars at the same time on the same site. So separate trailers is really what they are, that get rolled onto the site as temporary classrooms. The prices skyrocket and the timeline gets longer. So just building a building, this is the site, we can do it without touching the original building until we're done. The Winthrop, we would have to do it, as I said, in stages, and the costs, the estimates we were finding, were getting in excess of $160 million. So it's tough. It's a big site, but it's the way it's shaped and the way the current school is on there, it doesn't have the flexibility that you need to build a school, move everybody and knock down the old school. Whereas this Cutler site actually did.
All right, and I'm gonna follow up with, if anyone has any additional questions, they didn't, or they think of it later. There's two ways. One, you can always just email Eric. He'll get back to you with questions, or there is a form on the project website page that it gets submitted. I receive it and then I send it out to the whole team, which includes the architecture and PMA.
Yeah, and those get posted regularly on the site. There's a ton of FAQ questions there. And again, you can reach out to me, actually any of us. We will get you an answer if we don't have it. I've been involved in several building projects along my career, so I have a much better idea of what's happening and how things are going, and being involved in the school building committee keeps me on my toes, I guess, in understanding the things, including the implications across the communities. And I've said this in previous town meetings. I said it at my first town meetings. The school is generally considered to be the albatross, the financial albatross on everybody's neck. The reality is the school system is the glue that binds our district together. Our kids and our families really come and associate and connect at our schools, and our schools are used both during the school day and outside of the school day. And that really makes it important for us to have good quality places for our kids to grow and learn, good quality places for our staff and faculty to come and work. And it gives me and our principals the opportunity to, retain quality staff along the way. And then again, involving the community and really giving the community spaces to be a part of our school. Any
All
other
right.
ones?
Nope, nothing else came in. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you joining us tonight. Again, join us for the tours of the Cutler on the 15th, 10 a.m. We're there for 2 or 3 hours, depending on how many people show up. We're willing to hang out. We'll be there with the architects, the owner's project manual, and several people from the district that can help you answer questions, and we'll give you a tour and let you see kind of inside and outside what's going on. If you have a burning curiosity, please reach out. If we don't have an answer, we will get it for you one way or another. And then be on the lookout for the tax calculator that's coming out, so you can see just what your house, what the impact is based on the current assessed value of your home. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Have a great night. And thank you to Jen and Jen for spending time with me this evening to help out.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night, everybody.